Genetically Recode Subconscious Beliefs, An Introduction to Genetic Recoding by Corinne Sullivan and Camille Sullivan, 2019, narrated by Brenda Robinson. Hello, friends. We're the twins from Liberated Living, and we want to welcome you to Recode Subconscious Beliefs, an introduction to genetic recoding. If you're ready to upgrade your life to the next level and make a greater impact in the world by adding more value to humanity, or simply advance your coaching career or therapy practice, then we have a shortcut process that will help you achieve that by mastering your soul work through genetic recoding. Genetic recoding is a comprehensive therapeutic process that naturally recodes negatively inherited subconscious beliefs and activates epigenetic potential by starting at the root of core issues, such as genetically transferred dispositions and transgenerational epigenetic inheritance. It is a holistic therapy that incorporates a wide variety of therapeutic approaches that further equips practitioners with broad methods of healing that are typically used in professional healing practices and consulting careers. It is a standalone therapeutic process that can also be used as an adjunct therapy to complement other healing modalities and programs while incorporating various approaches to therapy. It is an invaluable tool for professionals and others with healing practices and consulting careers and provides a full holistic scope that enables individuals, couples, families, and generations to solve problems in all aspects within human nature: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. Benefits of the genetic recoding courses. Internal strategies in this introduction to genetic recoding will guide you to 1. Gain key strategies to genetically decode subconscious blocks and recode default programming to overcome inherent challenges, fulfill your purpose, and unlock your potential. 2. Discover how to activate the correct gene codes for healing and to align to your best self. 3. Learn how to recondition your mind for success using the correct psychology and upgrading your neurocircuitry. 4. Receive your free personal reference guide to genetically recode core emotions and subconscious beliefs for your personal use. 5. Receive guidance on your quest to mental and emotional mastery. 6. Receive training throughout your genetic recoding process so you can master your own medicine to become the expert in your field and receive a higher income reach. 7. Learn how you can be awarded with an accredited diploma as an internationally certified practitioner in as little as 6 to 8 weeks and receive a done-for-you practitioner's manual with therapeutic exercises and workbook templates to use like a business in a box for those looking to advance their coaching or therapy career. 8. Heal interrelational dynamics and break negative generational patterns, and more. As a practitioner, it's not necessary to become versed in the language and terminology of epigenetics, since we already laid out the groundwork for you. However, as long as you understand these practical strategies on a conceptual level and put forth the effort, you will succeed. The power of the mind. So, is your mind working against you? Are your beliefs helping you manifest your ideal reality? We all possess the same two segments of mind power, the conscious and the subconscious. Your conscious mind is the active, awake function of the mind that is alert, assesses, calculates, and judges. Your subconscious mind stores your memories, emotions, and beliefs. It is also the powerhouse of the mind that makes up more than 90% of your brain. So best to lend more credit to your powerful emotions so they can begin to work for you. Our subconscious beliefs unconsciously dictates our reality and runs our psychological programming. The stresses that are found in our unconscious and subconscious mind are the ones that cause most of our underlying challenges. Therefore, our beliefs are either working for us or against us. We can make the most of this internal power if we have a better understanding of our existent and inherent programming In order to change the subconscious commands, we must be able to access the subconscious mind. It's helpful to peek under the hood so we can better understand our unconscious processes and the mechanics of this powerful machinery. Laws of consciousness. Let's begin by developing a greater understanding of consciousness. The entire universe operates and interacts under fundamental forces of nature and physics, one of which is electromagnetic force. Without these fundamental forces, humans and all the other matter in the universe would fall apart. Electromagnetic forces define our human interactions and is the conscious reality we witness in our relationships with one another, our human mind power, and emotional impulses. This is really consciousness impulses, made visible through interplay of electromagnetism. It is through these laws where we can apply nature's biofeedback mirror, the mirror technique, which we will discuss later, to assist us in becoming more aware of negative thought and emotion patterns and begin to change, outgrow, and master unhealthy consciousness. What we think, feel, and do is consciousness energy, which forms the entire fabric of our life's experiences. Knowledge of these magnetic forces date back before 600 BC and was understood during the time Newton developed his laws of motion, 1686. Electric charges attract or repel one another, and magnetic poles in a manner similar to positive and negative charges and always exist as a pair. This is the basic concept of electromagnetism, and we can refer to these opposing charges or forces as many things, such as dual impulses, laws of opposition or polarity, masculine and feminine energies and impulses, yin and yang, etc., as every impulse has an equal and opposite yet balancing force governing it. Electric Potential, Khan Academy 2020. All living things experience these positive and negative charges as bonding and attracting or rejecting and repelling, which we've all experienced in varying degrees. These forces govern the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that are produced by our beliefs. We think and feel with the same energy that governs our world. Our thoughts are the electromagnetic blueprints, which will eventually externalize. So be sure to guard against critical or judgmental thoughts and perceptions, because that is what we'll continue to create and experience in our interactions and relationships with ourselves and others, due to our perception becoming a projection of our reality. Our internal reality becomes our external experience. Even as we project our judgments upon things and other people, we interfere with the natural frequencies of vibration or consciousness energy that make up who and what they are. For what we believe and perceive creates the conditions under which we operate. The contents of our consciousness constitutes the degree of our psycho-spiritual awareness, our insights, beliefs, thoughts, feelings, perceptions, knowledge, standards, and morals of behavior, and make up the values from which we build our lives. Therefore, if we want to change our lives, we must start with our consciousness. The ego profoundly limits the extensiveness of our perceptions, since it forces our consciousness to focus exclusively on our own needs and survival. Our ignorance of electromagnetism, which is a fundamental law of existence, has been the source of human suffering of every kind. Escape from our unconscious creations of human suffering is only possible when we lift our mind into purer perceptions and higher states of consciousness, freeing it from the limitations of the ego. When we use this mirror technique as an accountability tool to see into our own consciousness, it can prevent us from projecting a reality from negative thoughts and emotions. However, unprocessed emotions will only lead to unresolved conflict and ongoing negative loops. For this reason, we must clear our consciousness from the emotions that will only produce unpleasant realities. The only way to do this is to allow ourselves to reconnect with our emotions by fully feeling them, just as they are, without shame, guilt, or judgment. Then we can free them and allow healing to occur. Furthermore, it's important not to disqualify the important role our emotions play. Emotions. Emotion is one of the most important faculties of the human mind. As a powerhouse of the mind, emotion drives the other faculties of the mind, including memory, intelligence, intention, creation, etc. Emotion is best understood as energy in motion, and is the energy that fuels our thoughts and gives them power, putting them into motion and creation. However, without intense feeling, our emotions will not effectively engage our brain's neural pathways. Because of the effects of emotion on perception, thinking, and behavior, emotional energy has the power to encode our memories and form associations that bind us to our life experiences, regardless of whether they're positive or negative. Together, thought and emotion form a belief and combine into a power surge that is capable of boundless possibilities. Through the process of genetic recoding, we can eradicate beliefs and emotions that produce negative outcomes and restructure our mind with beliefs that work to our advantage. When we have a thought accompanied by a feeling through neural encoding, it forms a belief, producing a subjective or conditioned perception that becomes rooted in the subconscious mind, creating a perceptual reality for each of us, be it pleasant or unpleasant. It's simple neuroscience, really. Our beliefs subconsciously control our behavior through our thoughts and actions, which can either empower or disempower us. So, which faulty beliefs and emotions would you like to recode? Many of our stubborn beliefs and rigid paradigms that cause most of the resistance are the ones that were genetically transferred and passed from one generation to the next, which is a result of TEI and a process known as transgenerational epigenetic programming, TEP. Like believing you will never improve at something or overcome a particular challenge. Cycles of generational programming continue to perpetuate like a broken track repeating unless we make a proactive choice to put an end to it. We can refer to the rigid beliefs as the ones that stick with us or leave sticky memories. Would you prefer to hold on to these stubborn beliefs, conditioned by epigenetic programming, that are holding you back, or do what it takes to change and finally recode them? If you see blocks and obstacles in your own life, you're not alone. We've all been there, and it's a natural process of individual growth that will eventually lead us toward our soul growth, to address core healing from our wounds and attain liberation in our personal lives. Generational healing really is our soul work. The definition of psyche is the human soul, mind, or spirit. Therefore, psychology means the study of the soul, and psychological practices should address healing on a soul level that reaches the subconscious mind, including beliefs and emotions. Our philosophy. Our philosophy rests on personal empowerment. Like the Chinese proverb suggests, teach others how to fish rather than feed them for a day, which creates dependence and reinforces disempowerment. This is the model in which many businesses operate to create repeat business and dependency. Conversely, we want to show you how to use empowering recoding strategies to enhance the quality of your life that is lasting and not just a quick fix or a short-term solution. Those who have applied and successfully completed these healing strategies were able to successfully overcome their limiting beliefs and genetically recode their blocks to fulfill their latent potential and experience success by living their soul purpose. When utilizing these strategies for your own life, problems and obstacles can begin to naturally and more quickly resolve themselves. For example, if you fell into a trap, would you want a medical prescription or a risky surgery, hoping it'll help you out of that trap? Or perhaps you want someone who can relate and has been there to show you the strategy that helped them out of that trap. We've been there, and we're here to show you how to recode negative beliefs and inherent subconscious programming that has put you in a trap, which can help you heal from negative generational patterns once and for all. Our story. In our quest to remedy our own recurrent trauma from adverse childhood experiences, we adopted a completely holistic lifestyle using only natural approaches. We additionally experienced birth trauma as twins, which caused us to endure autoimmune disorders that produced other chronic health challenges. and led us to pursue an education and career in natural medicine as holistic therapists and practitioners. This taught us to address the whole scope of the individual on a multidimensional level: spiritual, emotional, and physical. After 20 years of working with a multidisciplinary team of professionals, we developed a very broad background in the healing profession and had the privilege of implementing each of these therapeutic strategies for ourselves and then with our own clients. As a result, we discovered that epigenetic inheritance was the common thread underlying everyone's core challenges and faulty programming, ours included. After designing holistic and therapeutic programs that were successful for us and our clients, and witnessing miraculous breakthroughs, we decided we needed to make them available on a larger scale while producing rapid results. So we compressed them into a shortcut system using our panacea model. The definition for panacea is a remedy for all ills or difficulties, a cure-all. Having these healing strategies at our immediate disposal became powerful tools in our profession that allowed us to follow a system designed to empower anyone who had undergone challenges in a spiritual, emotional, or physical capacity. These therapeutic decoding tools could pull others out of the same trap we were once in, and will help rewire their mind for success. This was how we crafted our courses and signature healing programs. These self-study e-courses are also designed to qualify and train coaches and therapists to become an expert in their field through genetic recoding and expand these empowerment strategies on a wider scale. The genetic recoding system and generational healing courses were drawn from organic personal life and professional life experiences, which inspired a mission of guiding others through their adversities to gain victory over their genetic predispositions and experience breakthroughs. We want to impact more lives and are limited to how many we can fit into a clinical space. With online programs, we have the privilege of inspiring change and creating impact in a massive capacity. We feel honored to help as many of those we can reach with these unique and proven healing systems and professional diploma courses. Each of us can heal from generational patterns using the process of genetic recoding, which is a comprehensive therapeutic process contained in our signature courses and panacea model that naturally alters the gene expression when transforming negative subconscious beliefs and genetically inherited psychological programming that is often a result of trauma, conditioned beliefs, and transgenerational epigenetic inheritance, TEP and TEI. These strategies can guide you in signaling the precise gene expression to activate your healing, since there are no answers or cures outside of you. It's our desire to help others to no longer prolong their dreams, but achieve their happiness and greatest fulfillment. Once we do our own healing and soul work, we can then, once and for all, align to our profound purpose, add greater value by making a positive impact on a larger scale, begin to unlock our full potential, achieve a greater sense of self-worth, and become self-actualized. The old English proverb, "You don't know where you're going until you know where you've been," illustrates the profound soul discovery we can embark on with generational healing. The majority of us wait to do our soul healing, but the shortcut solution is to start with genetic recoding, to heal generational programming, and instantly get to the root of the matter, mastering our lifelong problems. The origin of the word generation is Genesis, gene, which means beginning, source, or seed, and emphasizes that Genesis gets to the source to begin our healing journey to both prevent and transform the heritable genetic seed moving forward successfully. No one is an exception, even if we have a good relationship with our parents or admire them. Everyone has negative programming that they inherited from both of their parents and grandparents, or other ascendants that are creating undesirable self-defeating patterns. The sooner we complete our generational healing and reprogram negative beliefs by genetically recoding better mindsets and behaviors, the sooner we can enjoy healthy, soulful living while instilling positive, successful habits. By engaging in our inner soul work through the process of genetic recoding, we heal the entire generational system, preventing the same needless hardships and lifelong pain of intergenerational family patterns for our families, loved ones, and offspring, as we use effective psychological strategies and mind power to heal our traumas. We activate our own healing and turn off the faulty gene expression from these corresponding inherited distortions. In other words, healing family patterns in turn signals healthy gene codes for optimal healing while repairing DNA. Wikipedia DNA repair is a collection of processes by which a cell identifies and corrects damage to the DNA molecules that encode its genome. Since we chose to be the chain breakers in our own family, our personal sacrifice was made to dedicate this work as our life's calling by fulfilling our soul work with genetic recoding rather than pass down the generational seed to our own offspring. So we co-authored this advanced healing system not only for our benefit, but by making it accessible on a wider scale so that it's possible for others to activate their healing as well. Our proven panacea model is a shortcut system that will allow you to naturally experience breakthroughs in your personal life from limitations that are holding you back from a more fulfilling and freer life. So we're thrilled for this opportunity to bring these solutions forward, to share with those who would also like to gain the same benefits and experience success just as we and many others have. We've simplified these strategies by creating shortcuts to move into this deeper work. Our minds have been wired to stay in familiar comfort zones, avoiding what's unfamiliar, causing us to relive the same stories of yesterday and preventing us from new opportunities of growth for today and tomorrow. From an evolutionary perspective, Roger Guillotin, Ph.D. 2012, explains that familiarity can make us feel comfortable and safe because it appears to reduce the uncertainty of anything that might pose a threat. Generally speaking, things that are familiar are likely to be safer than things that are not. Exposure to new or unfamiliar stimuli initially elicits a fear of uncertainty. If something is familiar, we have clearly survived exposure to it, and our brain recognizes this and steers us toward it. The brain resists uncertainty as its greatest threat for survival purposes, although it's not necessarily safer. Now that we have introduced you to genetic recoding, let's give you a chance to reflect on your own generational patterns through relationship mirrors. Instead of reliving the same lessons, let's overcome challenges to get out of struggle and step into the freedom of breakthrough living with more ease and flow through personal mastery. In Part 2 of this course, we will guide you through the process to genetically recode subconscious beliefs with these internal shifts. How to identify and decode your trapped emotions from unmet childhood needs. Identify core beliefs that are transferred genetically from generation to generation, causing you self-defeat, and to be genetically predisposed to specific conditions. How to recode this unhealthy programming, enabling you to signal internal healing to help you thrive. Understand why this is the greatest challenge you were born to overcome to reach your full potential. Gain awareness around your blind spots that appear as conflict in your interrelational dynamics, partners and spouses. Leave the mass hypnosis behind that paralyzes your potential. Clear away inherent and social programming to ignite healing and purpose. Dissolve common misconceptions toward personal success. Heal generational and interpersonal relationships using a powerful healing model that also utilizes perceptual reframing and the mirror technique, and can be applied to each of life's challenges, and aligned to your authentic purpose to advance your potential. So, if you're ready, grab your workbook or a notepad and let's cover these 7 internal shifts now. Part 1, Module 1, Generational Healing, Discovering Hidden Beliefs and Subconscious Programming. We all have limiting beliefs that hold us back from reaching our potential, that are clues into our blind spots, and prevent us from fulfilling our own happiness. These personal limiting beliefs create unnecessary hardships, causing us to feel stuck from moving forward successfully. Examine your own life. Do you have any repeated learning experiences, playing like a broken record, that you're ready to finally outgrow and master? Those who fail to learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. So, ask yourself, are there any beliefs you are ready to let go of that are no longer serving you? Do you experience self-defeating behaviors such as believing you're not good enough or worthy to receive more, which leads to vicious cycles of self-sabotage and obstacles that prevent you from fulfilling your life's desires? Are there any trapped or suppressed emotions that are left unresolved? Or ego-based fears and self-doubt, including jealousy, competition, entanglements, or power struggles in relationships? Do you experience conflicting beliefs that interfere with your ability to accomplish what you sincerely desire? Do you believe that you have to work hard to get ahead or be successful? Or that everyone else can be happy except you? That you're different because excuse, story, or that unfortunate circumstances only happen to you? Most likely you can relate to a number of these, but you've probably already done everything in your power to overcome these cycles of negative experiences and thought processes, yet keep finding yourself producing the same results, and you're still not where you want to be? But why? Each of us have experienced these kinds of challenges at one time or another within our lifetime, so be sure not to fault yourself, because self-defeating behaviors are common to everyone, and we're all meant to overcome them. But most people don't go deep enough to change these limiting beliefs on a subconscious level, let alone on a genetic one. Negative subconscious programming is imprinted within our belief systems, and more often than not, these limiting beliefs were transferred genetically from our ancestors. Epigenetics reads the instructions to switch our genes on and off. Surprisingly, what determines the switch is our subconscious programming, be it good or bad. The good news: all of our challenges are equal to our potential. So take what is most challenging for you and imagine what equal potential is also possible for you. When we endure such difficulty, we're actually developing the strength and inner muscles to overcome these hurdles. However, most often our mind's negativity bias keeps us trapped in the problem, which only strengthens our fight for the problem rather than for the solution. When we view everything in our life that is happening for us and not to us, then we will no longer be at the mercy of life's circumstances, but instead can view everything as training for our growth and development. Challenges are always for our benefit, to help us grow and improve, so we can be empowered to live the life we desire and contribute our purpose to society at our best. When we're finally ready to surrender and change, we can redirect our focus to the solution and align to our potential. Many of you are ready for breakthroughs because you know you are destined for more in your life. So may you become better in the takeaway from this introductory course than when you started. So how do we overcome the mind's proclivity toward the negativity bias? Your beliefs unconsciously dictate your reality through your thoughts and behaviors that influence your choices and actions, including your emotional reactions. Subconscious beliefs are also responsible for running your psychological programming. The key difference between the conscious and the subconscious mind is that the subconscious gives orders, and the conscious follows the orders given by the subconscious mind. Therefore, it's best to be clear on those subconscious orders. It all begins in the mind. For instance, is your subconscious mind signaling you to keep working hard to get ahead? And yet, you continue to spin your wheels just to feel overwhelmed and defeated? Who did you learn this from? How far does an apple fall from the tree? What other subconscious patterns are producing unfavorable results? We all know we're a byproduct of our parents. However, many of us may not realize that most of the distress we encounter in life was genetically inherited from our parents and grandparents. In fact, a vast majority of our psychological distress was transferred in our DNA through RNA strands. This field of science is called epigenetics, or epigenomics, and studies the interactions between genes and the environment. Epigenetic research explores how environmental factors influence our behaviors and can cause changes that alter the way genes express themselves, including how they're turned on and off. It is actually our epigenetics, or gene expression, that has a wide influence on both our successes and failures, due to the beliefs and programming we also inherit. We'll explore this more. Candace Pert, Ph.D. in the Molecules of Emotion, 1997, helps to broaden our understanding of epigenetics and acknowledges that traits and behaviors acquired in one generation can be passed on to subsequent generations, but also demonstrates that our genes are shaped in part by our ancestors' life experiences. For instance, the research of Carlson and Dallenberg, 2000, and Jablonka and Ross, 2009, found that transgenerational epigenetic inheritance, TEI, increases our susceptibility to diseases, pathologies, as well as the psycho-emotional transmission of our ancestors. What's more is that epigenetics has also provided a valid explanation of how our beliefs and subconscious programming are influenced by the primitive beliefs of our ancestors' memories and the life experiences that shape their beliefs and its transference onto future generations. That's you. Even the transmission of traumatic experiences from previous generations are passed on to later generations because a traumatic experience produces epigenetic changes that can be transmitted, which has been substantiated by a number of different studies, including Maddox, 2013, Franklin, 2014, Provençal, Binder, 2015, and Diaz, 2015, among others. This means that we're also subject to some of the same inherent limiting beliefs and negative psychological programming of our ancestors, due to some of the hardships and struggles they may have faced in their time. Such dispositions result in transgenerational epigenetic programming, TEP, and present in our lives as fears, insecurities, negative thoughts, self-doubt, limiting beliefs, self-sabotage, poor habits, and other unwanted behaviors, something we can all relate to. No fun. These findings can be significantly helpful for anyone who has managed to cope with such difficulty and emotional hardship, to learn that there has been an inherited disposition all along. Even if you don't know your biological parents, subconscious beliefs are encoded in each of our genes, oftentimes creating a vicious cycle, until we genetically recode these fears and inherited beliefs, which will help us to eliminate self-defeating and sabotaging behaviors. Do you recognize any of your own heredity from faulty genetic programming, including addiction, codependency, abuse, worry, anger, anxiety, PTSD, or depression? And do you believe you're meant to be the chain breaker in your family? Through a process called epigenetic recoding or genetic recoding, we can discover the ability to genetically recode subconscious blocks, which is like uncovering an immediate key to success you've always had in your hand, and begin to experience breakthroughs. Generational healing through the process of genetic recoding was devised to not only decode these core emotional and subconscious beliefs, but to also successfully heal and recode them. As you apply these valuable strategies and insights, you will feel a sense of accomplishment and elevated self-worth. A dose of these powerful therapeutic practices can help you overcome negative subconscious beliefs and family patterns to achieve healthier and more rewarding relationships with others. Healing generational patterns through genetic recoding can advance you toward achieving self-mastery, enabling you to accomplish your goals and reach your potential without sabotaging your own efforts. In this program, you'll be able to identify not only the blind spots to your core genetic beliefs and default subconscious programming that may cause setbacks in your daily life, but also get to the source of the problem, and most importantly, learn key internal strategies to overcome the negativity bias and genetically recode them, so you can successfully change the gene expression and no longer suffer the perpetual repercussions of default programming and limiting beliefs. Part 2, Step 1. Identify your key players. Remove trapped emotion and rewire negative programming with genetic recoding. A profound way to begin identifying blind spots in our generational patterns is by applying the mirror technique. Discover who the key players are in your life and why all relationships reflect the relationship you have with yourself. Our parents leave an imprint influencing how we relate to others, as well as the relationship with ourselves. So we must start with the mirror of the parent-child relationship to get beneath the surface. For many, this mirror will translate from our parents to that of other authority figures, siblings, and more specifically spouses, or significant others until it is transmuted. With the mirror technique, we can identify who our key players are that have played a key role as catalysts, shaping us into who we are meant to be, then utilizing these inner strategies to overcome our core challenges. Begin this step by making a list of each of your key players, challenging and catalyzing your growth potential based on the relationship mirror, including your parents. This is typically a shorter step that will assist you when applying the following steps. Once you have completed this step, you will be ready to move on to Step 2. Step 2. Digging deep to decode emotional blocks. Learning our blind spots. Here we'll uncover the blind spots to unresolved emotions so we can address the root cause of challenges. Inherited beliefs and unmet childhood needs are responsible for shaping the majority of our behaviors and core beliefs because they were both modeled to us and transferred genetically. For this reason, and especially for those that were raised by their parents, inherited dispositions can be the most stubborn emotional patterns to overcome. Unmet needs evolve as a result of the child seeking the love, affection, comfort, or protection of the parent during difficult times and perceiving those needs as not being met. For example, a child may get hurt and run to the parent for emotional support to feel comforted and protected. This act helps the child to feel safe and worthy of the parent's love. If the child feels his or her emotional needs were dismissed or overlooked, she or he may not be able to self-regulate his or her emotions, but develop maladaptive coping responses as a result of the ego's protection mechanisms, regardless of whether the parent did his or her best to adequately meet the child's needs at that time. We will additionally explore how to deconflict and address the negative effects of maladaptive responses resulting from core inherited beliefs, unmet needs, and family patterns. Take mental inventory and notice what people or events activate certain emotional triggers. Primitive emotional reactions, as illustrated in the following triangle, are from distorted beliefs and epigenetic subconscious programming that serve as internal mirrors into our blind spots, unresolved emotions, and unmet needs, which is necessary to uncover in order to restore wholeness and emotional integration. These perceived voids disguised as our unmet needs are generally where our hot buttons are found. To assist you with this step, refer to the diagram of Karpman triangle below. The drama triangle, victim, rescuer, persecutor, is a social model that was conceived by Stephen Karpman in 1968 that describes our codependent cycles and power struggles existing within primary relationships. The Karpman drama triangle maps the archetypes of the dysfunctional social roles that can regularly occur between people in conflict that each of us can relate to during these times. Although it illustrates extreme examples of our maladaptive responses in these three roles, codependence is a natural part of our emotional development until we reach personal empowerment via accountability. These roles signify primal reactive patterns where we often find ourselves either giving our power away or attempting to gain power from others, and alternating between these roles. Now, let's take a closer look to better understand ourselves and where our codependent behaviors come from, which will help explain why we continue to attract certain types of people and repeat lessons in our life. Pay attention as we cover the attributes of these archetypes and consider who these might pertain to in your life and which role applies most to you. Attributes of the victim archetype. Victims believe that things are outside of their control and happening to them. The victim feels oppressed, helpless, attacked, powerless, sorrowful, and victimized by a persecutor, which can be a person or outside circumstance. Victims can seem unable to make decisions, solve problems, take pleasure in life, or achieve solution-oriented insight. The victim often takes the responsibility for the pain or emotional burden that was transferred onto them from the persecutor, perpetuating feelings of helplessness and negativity. This is one way in which victims unconsciously give their power away to the persecutor, placing themselves in the victim martyr role, due to a core belief of feeling powerless to others' control or outside circumstances. Because they fear acting like a persecutor, they believe that it is more noble to be a victim than a persecutor. As a result, they learn to take emotional responsibility for others, causing overwhelm for carrying these heavy burdens. Victims will seek out a rescuer who will save them from a persecutor, but also perpetuate the victim's state of helplessness. Rotating roles. To further illustrate this triangle and the rotating roles, when the rescuer tries to save the victim from a persecutor, it subconsciously implies to the victim that they are incapable, which also causes them to feel powerless because victims lack confidence in their own capabilities. Therefore, the victim will begin to resent the rescuer, and the rescuer will begin to feel unappreciated for all of their hard work and effort in saving the victim. The rescuer's resentment will begin to fester, causing them to be angry toward the victim, rotating them to now begin acting like the persecutor with blame and anger aimed at the victim. Now they have both fallen prey to the victim position, unaccountable for each of their part. Victims may also find themselves turning to those less fortunate or in need of saving, commonly younger individuals or pets, because they can empathize and identify with the same feelings of helplessness and want to feel useful or more significant, therefore alternating to the rescuer archetype themselves. Understanding the victim. Generally, victims have suffered from some form of abuse or hardship, whether in youth or early life. Children are unable to defend themselves against the abuse of offenders or perpetrators and do not deserve the harm or emotional neglect they have been subjected to. The pain from abusive or neglectful experiences are difficult to overcome. Psychological abuse from parents, teachers, peers, caregivers, or others who demean, bully, criticize, or humiliate the youth can inflict serious, long-lasting injury. Both inadequate attention and malnourishment from neglect can interfere with proper emotional and social development. Compassion, understanding, and most of all, validation is extremely important to those who have been victimized and is a crucial part of their healing. They seek the love and understanding that they once lacked from genuine human care and affection. They need to understand that it is okay to feel the way they do, and that what happened to them was disempowering and not an appropriate act of love. To help them heal, the victim needs to extend the level of compassion and understanding for themselves that they seek in others. As they gain an understanding of their perpetrator's behavior, in return, this will minimize their fear, so they can end this victim-persecutor power struggle and reclaim their power, rather than continue giving it away by fearing persecutor types. It's important to note, however, that there are limits to how much validation a person should require. There comes a time when our deep-seated need for compassion or validation can form long-standing grievances or turn into attention-seeking and cripple our ability to heal and receive the help we need. Victims can get caught up in self-pity and look for the sympathy of others in their quest to feel validated. This can lead to entitlement behaviors in some victim archetypes, especially if they were coddled during times of hardship or illness. This can cause them to behave charming or manipulative to get their way or get others to do what they want in their ongoing endeavor to feel validated. There are multiple ways in which victims will seek validation, and this is a common way that a victim who has been enabled will seek sympathy or attention. Frequently, victims of abuse suffer from a poor self-esteem, which can grow to feelings of self-hatred because abuse often leaves them feeling useless, unloved, and unwanted, causing them to become vulnerable to depression, suicide, or psychosomatic illnesses. In an effort to cover up their emotional pain and insecurities, over time they may try to find an escape by turning to addictions, or they may turn to pride, which is a false sense of security and an attempt to cover hidden insecurities. or they may use getting and protecting behaviors, which they do for the emotional reward. For instance, Dr. Bear explains that victims are frequently feeling sorry for themselves while looking for validation due to the payoff to acting like a victim. If we can convince people that we've been wounded and treated unfairly, they'll often stop hurting us and give us their sympathy, attention, and support. That's why we act like victims and have played this role at different points in our life. Empowering the victim archetype. When victims deny their own wants and needs, take the blame for everything, and give in to whatever the other person wants, even if it contradicts their desires, it perpetuates this role. It also causes them to be responsible for others out of guilt, rather than being responsible for their own fearfulness and passivity. Ultimately, the victim needs to reclaim their power by asserting stronger boundaries where they are less susceptible to absorbing the distress or emotional weight of others. It's important that victims let go of the shame and guilt placed on them by persecutor types and stand up for themselves by continuing to maintain healthier boundaries. Victims need to face their fears and take new action, even if it means allowing others to empower them with new skills in the areas that this archetype feels inadequate to engender greater confidence in themselves. Once they gain confidence in themselves and provide the emotional comfort and strength they desire from internal sources, it will prevent them from feeling like a victim and continually seeking validation or empathy from a rescuer. Attributes of the persecutor archetype. Persecutors believe that no one is as dependable or responsible as they are and do not trust in others' competency. For this reason, they feel they should be in charge. In terms of resilience, persecutors won't bend or be flexible, can't be vulnerable because they fear the risk of being a victim themselves. Persecutors can act like know-it-alls, yell and criticize, but they don't actually solve any problems or help anyone else solve the problem. The persecutor has become disconnected from personal feelings and uses a scapegoat to transfer the responsibility of his or her emotional burden onto the victim through the use of attacking behaviors such as blame, anger, and projection, making it the victim's fault. This is typically a learned behavior and once modeled in their environment. This is the persecutor's unconscious attempt to gain power and control due to the core belief of feeling inadequate or not enough, and the fear of feeling weak or vulnerable. Unmasking the persecutor. It is important to understand that behind every villain is a wounded inner child. Persecutors were once the victim themselves, and may have suffered abuse or other types of traumatic experiences that are still unresolved. Traumatic experiences may even lead to a switch in personality, where they will become the abuser or the perpetrator in place of the victim, to protect themselves from further harm or abuse. They resent having felt defenseless and retaliate with misdirected anger at others. They can only connect with the feeling of anger and other superficial emotions because they have lost touch with their deeper emotions. We can think of the persecutor as someone who was likely bullied in the past and subsequently became a bully as a protection mechanism. Therefore, the persecutor role was a way for survival. Their fear is feeling weak and vulnerable, which is why they criticize the victim, and the archetypal role of a persecutor helps them to avoid that same dreadful fate or reality. Persons who have experienced extreme trauma can tend to block out their pain, leaving them dysregulated or fragmented. They may suffer from self-rejection for the person they really are because they were left feeling unwanted, unliked, and uncared for. This can result in pseudo-identities, such as masked personalities or other dissociative identity disorders, DID, as an attempt to run away from themselves and don a false front to others. Their lack of concern or empathy for others stems from a lack of empathy from others in earlier developmental years, resulting in disconnection and dissociation of their own feelings and denial of their own pain. Understanding the persecutor archetype. Attacking. Persecutors are easily provoked to anger as a reaction and protection mechanism when it comes to dealing with their emotions, and commonly use attacking as a getting and protecting behavior. Bear explains that attacking is a behavior that motivates another person through fear and intimidation to behave in a way that we want. Projecting anger and blame are two of the most common forms of attacking. For example, with our anger, we can get people to give us attention, respect, authority, power, flattery, approval, even sex. But of course, they're giving us those things to avoid our anger, not from genuine love or affection. In addition to anger, we dominate and accuse by making people feel guilty, criticizing them, withdrawing approval, physically intimidating them, and using positions of authority at work, at home, and elsewhere, all in order to get a false sense of love and protect ourselves from fear. These are examples of how persecutors enter into power struggles with others. We are familiar enough with the expression, the guilty accuse. Projection is simply a deflection of another's own guilt conscience, because we can only perceive others through our own lens, known as cognitive filtering. Projection is a classic example of the mirror technique. Those that accuse don't know any different other than what they know of themselves. The ego's defense is blaming. Often when someone blames, judges, criticizes, or belittles another, it gives a false sense of power or control over others. Attempting to make someone else wrong or inferior tricks the persecutor into believing it will make themselves feel right and superior. The ultimate purpose of projection is always an attempt to get rid of guilt. Yet it is only a way to conceal it. Blame. It is common to find ourselves blaming others for the misfortunes in our lives. We don't realize that often our first impulse is to place blame somewhere else and believe that others are at fault. However, this will only add to our problems, while reinforcing our state of helplessness by limiting our resourcefulness and problem-solving skills that come through accountability. For some of us, we tend to take many things too personally, while others do not let things bother them as easily, adapting to difficult situations. Those who take things more personally will often make the mistake of believing they have suffered more because they dwell on it more. When others are not as upset as they are, they feel their pain must have been much greater, and they feel justified in their resentment. Denial. Feeling hurt is normal and is not a sign of weakness so long as we do not deny our feelings and can eventually heal and move on. We are being dishonest with ourselves when we don't take responsibility for our own feelings, especially if we're trying to place blame elsewhere. No one else is in charge of your emotions and how you respond to painful events except you. Blame is disempowering and keeps us trapped in a victim stance. Blaming others for the way that you feel will only perpetuate the suffering and prevent you from the self-empowerment that is gained through accountability, which is how we heal and correct the behavior. This means that you would prefer to be a victim rather than victorious over your own life, because you mistakenly believe there will be a payoff. This kind of blame and anger will only keep us stuck in the victim and persecutor role, along with prolonged bitterness that may even cause us to behave like a villain. Are you spending too much time dwelling on the wrongs in your life and failing to see your part? Is it time to make adjustments and stop blaming others, but instead confront the unresolved and trapped emotional pain that will bring healing to your life? Attributes of the rescuer archetype. Rescuers are frequently agitated, overworked, and caught in a martyr style, while resentment festers underneath. Although the rescuer may be well-intended, their rescuing takes the victim's wings away, leaving them feeling incapable or powerless. The rescuer's desire to come to the rescue is rooted in their ability to empathize from the absence of others coming to their aid. However, the rewards derived from the rescuer role allows them to ignore their own issues. Their actual primary interest is really in avoidance and reflection of their own problems. A concern for the victim's needs prevents the rescuer from taking accountability for their unresolved needs. The enabler disempowers the victim by rescuing him or her, causing the victim to feel more helpless and powerless, sending the unspoken message, "I don't believe in you. You're incapable of doing this on your own. You need my help," and so forth, all so they can feel needed. Although the intention is an act of compassion to prevent others from the suffering or similar struggles that perhaps they themselves have endured, This causes them to depend endlessly on others in their need to validate their self-worth. Conditional love is at the core. Although unaware, this archetype's inclination of giving to get is a classic indication of condition-based relationships that will establish unhealthy codependencies. Rescuers may not be aware that they operate from conditional love because this was all they've known. When people do not receive adequate unconditional love as children, it leaves them feeling empty and alone. As a consequence, they unconsciously want to feel valued or needed, which enlists them into these codependent relationship cycles of helping people, in hopes to derive emotional security and feel worthwhile, but also superior to victims. In youth, if the rescuer had many consequences and conditions placed on them from the parent or caregiver, this was one way that conditional love was modeled, and the rescuing became a programmed response to fulfill one's obligations. Similarly, if the rescuer grew up with an angry, manipulative, controlling, or abusive parent, the child may have developed a people-pleasing personality to avoid the hostility of the parent. Personality changes may also foster other unnatural identities, which can cause switches in archetypal roles. For example, an otherwise strong or assertive personality type may yield a passive personality, where the individual avoids speaking up and voicing their true feelings for the sake of avoiding conflict and the same harsh realities or turmoil from their home life in youth. People-pleasing personalities may avoid authentic self-expression in fear of losing the love and approval of those they aim to win over. This is common in both the victim and rescuer roles. Therefore, learning to say no and express their needs is a common lesson for both of these archetypes to establish healthy boundaries and honor forms of self-respect. Rescuers are avoidant types that run away from their problems for the obvious reasons of having a fear of facing them. Running is a getting and protecting behavior. If we simply move away from a source of pain, we're less likely to be hurt. So running becomes a way of protecting ourselves. Withdrawing, avoiding people or conflicts, leaving relationships, neglecting responsibilities, and being shy are all forms of running or hiding. Unknowingly, we also use getting and protecting behaviors as a substitute for unconditional love to fill our emptiness with whatever feels good in the moment, commonly referred to as immediate or instant gratifications. We may also abuse money, anger, violence, food, sex, alcohol, drugs, and pursue other shallow things in place of real love to escape our pain and fear. All of these consist of variations of praise, power, and pleasure. Running comes from a lack of courage and strength to confront ourselves and our problems. A more chronic and severe method of escaping is when we mask our personalities in order to hide our true identity and appear as something we're not, for something we perceive as more acceptable. Yet it requires courage to confront our problems in order to overcome them. Courage is not fearing what any person will think of you, but having the integrity to follow what's in your heart and is right and true for you. Avoiding conflict means avoiding solutions and problem solving, which is an essential life skill. It also requires unconditional love without the hope for personal gain, but rather mutual gain to reach a resolution. Have courage to be honest and courage to be real, which is the courage to be your authentic self. Healthy relationships involve taking the risk of losing the approval of others by standing up and voicing our needs and desires, unveiling our true personalities, which would open rescuers up to unconditional love in relationships. Due to the conditions that were placed upon them, rescuers feel it is their duty to take responsibility for others, often making themselves physically or emotionally available even if others are not there for them in return. Their hope in place is to feel worthwhile and appreciated, but instead this leads them to feeling bitter, used, and taken for granted. Rescuers tend to think of themselves as big-hearted or giving to a fault, yet they derive their self-worth from others because they want to feel needed and important. Playing the role of the rescuer can make us feel like a hero and give us the feeling that we're worthwhile and making a difference. Everyone wants to feel valued, needed, and worthwhile. Many of us can relate to the rescuer role because there are a number of ways that we can rescue that are either protective or over-nurturing, which is both a masculine and feminine archetypal role. For instance, people can rescue others from various hardships, whether emotionally, physically, spiritually, or financially, such as playing the family doctor, healer, preacher, savior, and hero. Fixing others is an unconscious way to avoid making corrections within ourselves and passively exercising control over others. The attributes of these archetypes, such as wanting to save and rescue, rescuer, hoping for empathy and understanding, victim, seeking power and recognition, persecutor, are clues as to how we can express and give greater unconditional love to ourselves, because it is reflecting what we are lacking inwardly and emotionally. Our good intentions to save or rescue other people will only cause more harm in the process because it will add to our existing burdens and cause us to take others' power away. Keeping this entanglement going, rescuers will eventually feel unappreciated and overburdened, with no apparent payoff. So as we can see, the attempt to save others from their struggle is equally damaging to the rescuer as it is the victim. Relieving themselves of this role helps to remove the burdens that do not belong to them, and also prevents the victim from taking advantage of those intending to help. In place of rescuing, we can rise by lifting others through empowerment. For example, we can assist others by creating scenarios that are mutually beneficial, not placing oneself above another. When we exercise our faith in others, such as believing in people who might find themselves in a victim position, then we can create positive outcomes that are empowering in the lives of both involved. When we let go of wanting to feel needed and validated by others, and attempting to generate value by saving them, we can achieve healthy and rewarding relationships. Breaking from these roles allows us to develop true unconditional love, free from attachments and egoic impulses, deriving worth only from the self, which can eliminate the unhealthy dependency on one another. Triangulation. Initially, a drama triangle arises for a couple of reasons. When three parties enter a group or triad and a power struggle ensues because one or more players become threatened or feel insecure in the group. This may take the attention or control away from one of the players. The feeling of three being a crowd can produce a power struggle, causing a triangulation to occur. It only takes one person to cause the triangulation with the other parties involved, but all parties are responsible for deciding to either engage or disengage in the drama. Another common case is when two people find themselves in conflict with one another. They will reach out to a third party. The third person assumes an outside position. Typically, a person takes on the role of a victim or persecutor. When a two-party relationship is experiencing tension, one of the parties then feels the need to enlist other players into the conflict. As what often happens, a victim will seek out a rescuer to enter the situation to help reduce the tension. Thus, triangulation will begin to occur. Wikipedia Contributors, 2018. These enlisted players take on roles of their own that are not static, and therefore various scenarios can occur. For example, the victim might turn on the rescuer. The rescuer then switches to persecuting. Participants in the drama triangle first learn their habitual role in their family of origin that develops as a result of dysfunctional interactions within family patterns, starting with the father-mother-child triad and sibling relationships. As shown in Bowen Family Systems Theory, 2018. Hidden rewards. Each position in the triangle has a hidden payoff for those playing it. They each get their unspoken psychological needs met in a manner they feel justified, without having to acknowledge the broader dysfunction or harm done in the situation as a whole. This is where the codependency lies. The rescuer is someone who has a covert motive, and who is actually benefiting egoically in some way from being the one who rescues, and appears to make great efforts to solve the problem. Rescuers foster dependency to feel important and get a self-esteem boost, receive a respected status, or derive enjoyment by having someone trust and depend on them, causing them to feel superior, but at a deeper level plays upon the victim in order to continue receiving a psychological payoff, of feeling important and needed. The victim gets their needs met by feeling safe and rescued from the persecutor and having the rescuer take care of them. They want to feel understood and treated fairly, explaining why they're innocent and their situation was unjust. They seek validation, sympathy, attention, and support, in place of feeling wounded and victimized. The persecutor derives a false sense of power by taking charge of people and situations. Consequently, it prevents them from being at the mercy of others, helping them to avoid feeling defenseless or appearing weak and vulnerable, using the victim as their scapegoat, instead of taking emotional responsibility and accountability for their hurt, pride, or anger. Persecutors and rescuers need victims to build their own sense of power and superiority, and victims need rescuers and persecutors to reinforce their sense of helplessness and powerlessness. It's an ongoing codependent cycle. When we behave like the persecutor or rescuer, we use common behaviors that induce drama and power plays, like control and manipulation, as an unconscious attempt to derive power from others. Yet this power source is outside of us and causes us to depend on others for our source of power. Again, this is an ineffective strategy that only feeds the insecurities of the ego, as opposed to building on true inner peace and emotional security. When we behave like victims, we believe that things are outside of our control and happening to us, giving away our power to others or our situation. The antidote, then, to these drama-intense relationship transactions rests on personal empowerment. When discovering the emotional rewards that perpetuate the codependent patterns and depriving the players of their payoff, or by eliminating the dependence on the emotional reward. Reflection. 1. Who do these roles pertain to in your life? Examine yourself closely to see which role applies most to you and who plays the other characters. The drama roles we undertake are completely subjective, as we rarely consider the habitual patterns and relationship dynamics we have with others, but rather assume that conflicts and problems are someone else's fault. Although the behaviors of these archetypes are unconscious, their attributes clearly present our codependent relationships with one another and pertain to each of us. 2. While there's most likely no malintent, awareness into our personal behaviors is the first step to our transformation. Can you find the common thread hidden in each of these roles? That beneath each of them is a wounded inner child, a victim, needing to feel unconditionally loved? 3. Are there specific people in your life that heighten emotional triggers more than others? Knowing this will be significant as we explore the next step and should help enhance deeper self-awareness. 4. What is the emotion this person or event activates in you that leads you to play this role? Trace the emotion to the core or primary limiting belief this event or person is triggering within you. Oftentimes, it requires us to search deep into our psyche to discover the answers that will help us decode core emotions and belief systems. Examples of the most common limiting beliefs. 1. I'm not smart or educated enough. 2. It's selfish of me to want more. 3. I don't feel that I deserve it. 4. I don't have any control because these things are happening to me. 5. I need money to make money. 6. I'm afraid of trying and failing. 7. There's not enough for me. 8. I've tried everything and don't have the willpower. There is typically one or more core beliefs underlying each of these examples, common on a collective level. Refer to your free reference guide, Genetically Recode Core Emotions and Subconscious Beliefs, to further assist you with this step. 5. Before moving on to Module 2, rate the severity of the emotion, problem, or complaint, such as the level of discomfort or anxiety you feel associated with your core beliefs. From 1 to 10, 10 being the highest level of intensity and 1 being the lowest. At the conclusion of this introductory course, we will reevaluate the severity of this problem or complaint to examine the level of progress you have made after completing this introductory course. Module 2, Generational Healing. Emotional Responses. Now that you've had a chance to reflect on some of your unmet childhood needs by examining core emotions and subconscious beliefs, evaluated codependent behaviors using the drama triangle, and have rated the level of impact these issues have had on you, let's explore common maladaptive responses to these core emotions and beliefs. These emotional response patterns play out like a broken record throughout our life, in primary and intimate relationships. Our unmet needs leave an emotional scar, causing us to behave with emotionally maladaptive responses, emotionally reactive, dissociative, or disconnected from self and others. The following are the types of emotional responses adapted from emotion-focused therapy, formulated by Les Greenberg and Sue Johnson in the early 1980s, that represent poorly regulated interactions found between partners and intimate relationships that can help you identify some of your own. The goal is to avoid reinforcing negative cyclical patterns by recognizing emotional reactions or responses that are produced by common negative beliefs and inherent programming, resulting in unfavorable outcomes, to that of establishing emotion regulation as an adaptive role in emotional wholeness and healthy human functioning. With effective and practical healing techniques and strategies, we can self-regulate by developing emotionally adaptive responses and increase self-awareness and initiating positive outcomes in our intimate relationships. Maladaptive, unhealthy emotional responses are generally dysfunctional responses based on emotions conditioned from our past that are no longer useful and are often formed during traumatic experiences or a consequence of inherited behaviors. Maladaptive responses are a result of unresolved, suppressed emotion that lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms, including addictions, escapism, depression, anxiety, dissociation, bitterness, grievances, jealousy, psychosomatic illnesses, and other manifestations. Reactive emotional responses are when a different emotion occurs after the first emotion. Reactive emotions are a defense against feeling the deeper, more painful emotions that we are afraid to witness, experience, and process, such as feeling anger to avoid sadness or hurt, or fear to avoid anger. Reactive responses include codependent behaviors that induce power struggles with others, such as persecuting behaviors, attacking, blaming, accusing, judging, criticism, dominating, pride, anger, rescuing behaviors, denial, resentment, superiority, enabling, overdoing, victim behaviors, defensiveness, justifying, rationalizing, and helplessness. Manipulative emotional responses are experienced and expressed when we learn that our positive or negative emotions have an effect on others. We might express emotions to get someone to pay attention to us, to get them to do something for us, to approve of us, or perhaps most often just not to disapprove of us, using threats, blame, anger, or an attempt to assert power over others, and use others to get something from them, are common examples of manipulative emotional responses, sometimes referred to as instrumental emotional responses, and are a classic indication of power struggles that exist in the context of conflict. Adaptive, healthy emotional responses are beneficial emotional responses to life. For example, sadness about losing a loved one, anger in response to a violation, and fear of threat all lead to needed change and taking powerful action. Emotional self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand one's own emotions. People with this competence are able to identify subtle differences in their emotions and know how their emotions affect their behavior, decisions, and performance. Clamor Depth Therapy, 2017. How tuned in and connected are you to your emotions and feelings? Are you skillfully able to express yourself authentically? Or are you emotionally suppressed and disconnected by avoiding emotions, creating unhealthy or maladaptive responses? To enhance our self-awareness, it is also vital to both practice being present to our emotions and honoring them, rather than escaping or trying to anesthetize them, which will only bury them inside to suffer the repercussions at a later time. We cannot move forward in life and onto healthier relationships or expect better results until we heal from our past and the beliefs that are producing undesirable outcomes. We will continue to repeat the same lessons from the errors in our thinking until we face our shadows. The result of our current relationships and experiences are a direct result of our inherited programming and distorted thinking. Yesterday's failures become the consequences of our tomorrows. We can't move through what an experience is meant to teach us if we're blocking or suppressing our core primary emotional needs. To be human is to feel alive, which is to fully feel every emotion. So there's no shame in having emotions, only in how we choose to manage them. Von Cook and Calvin Young, developers of the Vocal Epigenetic Technological System, 2005, explain that emotional disconnect may result from abuse, emotional pain, disappointment, fear of rejection or ridicule, repeated experiences of feeling rejected by significant people in our lives, or any situation entailing overwhelming emotions. Being ridiculed or made fun of in childhood can present as shame in adult life, which may create a conditioned belief or programmed response. The emotional shutdown acts as a protection from any chronic or mounting stress the individual would otherwise experience. It's imperative to give ourselves permission to process our emotions so that they aren't buried alive, and we suffer emotional disconnection and other symptoms. Civilized societies reinforce a model of escaping our emotions by running away, avoiding or ignoring them, which is not a solution to the problem, but the cause and consequence of our problems. It's a poor coping mechanism. When we do not choose adaptive responses by confronting our emotions in the moment, we put off dealing with them later, and they surface in the form of psychopathologies and maladaptive responses. External validation. As a result of maladaptive behaviors, whether inherently or socially, we've been programmed and conditioned to turn to things outside of ourselves for answers and to seek validation for our self-worth, starting with the approval of our parents or caretakers. Because of our tendency to avoid our feelings in response to emotional hurts from unmet childhood needs, we often attempt to fill this perceived void with external validation, trying to gain power externally versus accessing our internal power, unless we become aware of it and develop new empowerment strategies, genetic recoding and perceptual reframing, that can enable us to heal the wounded inner child. Because external validation is innate in us all, it is helpful to discuss this in further detail. This is particularly important if you frequently feel derailed by inevitable challenges or have the propensity to hang self-worth on what others think. Common ways to seek validation outside of ourselves is by attaching our identity or self-worth to money, education, appearance, titles, material possessions, external stimulus, relationship status, escapism such as overworking and busyness as a false sense of fulfillment, self-worth, or importance. Inadvertently or not, we often use people to feel validated and feel our own sense of emptiness in an attempt to generate emotional security and satisfy unmet emotional needs by looking for acknowledgement, approval, validation, or recognition from others. Seeking external validation describes the disempowering and codependent nature of maladaptive behaviors and is how many people approach love in intimate partnerships. It is a common misconception in society's matrix system. Many of us make the mistake of filling our plate to fill our sense of emptiness, rather than filling our cup with self-love and self-care. There's no benefit to looking outside ourselves for answers to meet our needs or seek validation. The standard human need is to love and be loved. All of our core emotional needs stem from this vital human need. Every behavior is rooted within one of these two fundamental needs. We all need to feel loved and acknowledged. Without these vital needs, we wither, and so do our relationships. In other words, our emotional needs are imperative. In fact, we spend our entire lives trying to have them met, which becomes the driving force behind every action and intention. So, in essence, every human's underlying need and desire is for real love, which is unconditional. Yet real love is given, not taken, not needy and not self-seeking. Unconditional love needs to first come from within before attempting to attain it from others in the form of seeking acceptance, approval, or validation. Our unmet needs are only illusions of our perceived voids from our conditioned programming until we fulfill some of these unmet needs within ourselves and are no longer at the mercy of others or anything outside ourselves. Due to operant conditioning, many of us engage in fear-based, ego-driven love because that's how it was modeled and transferred epigenetically. As a result, we come from a place of need and lack, rather than from abundance, fulfillment, or giving. Fear-based living is what we've been taught in mainstream society. Looking for outside validation or answers is an ineffective coping strategy and induces more patterns of addiction or codependency, and more than likely originated from inherent patterns. The source of validation we turn to will most likely be determined by the codependent nature of our epigenetics, and could determine our love language type, depending on the void we felt. The cognitive distortion of needing outside validation eventually teaches us to discover our own intrinsic wisdom and self-worth, which isn't tied to external factors or what others think, but most importantly how we feel about ourselves, and give to our own self-regard. Step 3. Giving your past purpose. Our perceived voids are rooted in our core beliefs and are present within each of us, affecting our worldview. Your unmet need may have been physical or material, such as suffering from an injury or living in poverty, but it left an emotional scar, and that is the unmet emotional need you carry around with you today. By now, you've been able to recognize some maladaptive responses from perceived voids masquerading as unmet needs in your current relationships and how it plays out in your present life. The same unmet needs we had as a child, from wanting the love, affection, validation, or attention of a parent to feeling worthy of our parents' love, is the same void we are attempting to meet in our intimate adult relationships. Likewise, the greatest probability is that these unmet needs are also a result of TEI. In other words, they are the same beliefs and unmet needs your parents had, along with the generations that preceded them, and has been left neglected and unfulfilled for many generations. Core beliefs and maladaptive responses were transferred and modeled to us by our parents. In other words, the unfulfilled dreams of those that preceded us carry emotions forward through us, and each generation that supersedes the next is meant to fulfill these desires and connect to a greater vision to reach a higher potential. In essence, it's by design that we are each a human ladder, building and expanding on yesterday's ideas and capacities, adding our own magic touch. This gives both our past and those of our ascendants greater purpose and fulfillment. With this awareness, it can help broaden our perspective regarding the shortcomings of our parents. It also helps to understand that likely they've done the best they knew how with what they had, but couldn't give more because essentially, we can't give what we don't have within ourselves first. Take a closer glance at their life experiences and hardships, then begin to acknowledge that they did the best they could with what they had and were equipped with. Naturally, this would suggest that they gave you more than they had in their upbringing. It's an overcompensation principle we all inherit, to swing the pendulum the other way. Most parents typically hope to give their children more than they had, and do not want them to suffer the same lack. If you're a parent, you will most likely understand and relate. Yet each of our parents or caretakers have their own unmet needs, or more accurately, perceived voids, that they've attempted to fill and cope with. For instance, if as a child you may have felt that one or both of your parents lacked emotional availability or connection, understand that this parent was most likely unavailable to their own emotional needs and lacked it in their upbringing as well. Since we can't give others what we don't have until we first internally embody it, as to also externalize it, you may still be looking for that kind of emotional availability in your adult relationships, and may currently feel attached to fulfilling this with a significant other, until it is internally met. Core emotions are transferred from one generation and absorbed by the next generation. This causes us to spend most of our lives seeking to have our own needs met. typically through other people. Consequently, few people rarely consider the hardships of others, including those that have gone before them, because they're occupied by having their own needs remedied, and perhaps even feeling resentment toward them. Epigenetic transference of unmet emotional needs creates a vicious cycle and inhibits the capacity of fully developing compassion and empathy or practicing it in our daily lives. Certainly, lack of empathy or self-love is at the root of every crime and is an explanation behind every unkind and unloving way toward another. It reinforces egoic and self-seeking behaviors as opposed to developing more adaptive and altruistic behaviors and redirecting it toward more loving and fulfilling relationships. Now that we have a basic understanding of the behaviors of others, it can become easier to extend grace and compassion for their shortcomings, as well as our own. You don't have to be a modern-day Mother Teresa to embody empathy. This shift in perspective can assist you in determining the origins of your behaviors, core beliefs, and unmet emotional needs. Furthermore, if you focus on the infallible ways in which you were loved during your upbringing, you'll recognize that your parents' caretakers made significant sacrifices on your behalf as you identify their unmet needs and begin to address your own. We may not often lend as much weight to our relationship patterns to the relationship we had with our parents or caretakers until we identify the correlation between our patterns today and in our youth. It's not always necessary to know your biological parents or grandparents as you begin to heal inherent beliefs and genetic programming. You can do so without needing to involve other family members in the healing process, which means you can also heal these ancestral links from members who are deceased or still living. Begin by extending grace and compassion to them, because you now realize that you can relate from a place of true empathy and fulfill latent potential to a bigger dream. Illustration of TEI patterns. Case Study 1. Subject suffered an injury in early adolescence, causing her to lose the same teeth that was parallel to a childhood injury that her mother had, resulting in losing the same teeth from each of their injuries. Case Study 2. Subject suffered a heart attack just as he was approaching his 50th year. Likewise, his father suffered a heart attack in his 50th year. Case Study 3. Subject 1. Grandfather had a hip replacement and genetically transferred the same disposition onto Subject 2, who was born with a dislocated hip. We carry the same psychological burdens from cognitive distortions as the generations before us, and they show up in our lives as similar patterns that include both emotional and physical predispositions. Our masculine and feminine natures are another example of TEI. Genetics play a major role in the balance or lack of balance in our masculine and feminine qualities. Consequently, we may inherit traits of masculine or feminine dominance, or it can be turned on through our gene expression as a result of stress signals. Generally, the parent that we resist or reject the most is the one we take after the most genetically. We are most like the parent we oppose, which is what we resist in ourselves. Our parents are the mirrors into our psychological programming. Therefore, it reflects where we need to make the most peace to obtain balance and acceptance within ourselves. Where are you possibly swinging the pendulum out of balance or overcompensating? Are you expressing masculine or feminine dominance? Example. According to Wikipedia, traits traditionally viewed as masculine in Western society include strength, courage, protective independence, violence, and assertiveness. Traits traditionally cited as feminine include gentleness, empathy, nurturing, and sensitivity. A common example that many of us may be guilty of is found in the phrase, marrying a partner like your parent. Regardless of whether your partner is like your mother or father, there's often a correlation due to core emotions that were transferred, and we face the duality of this imbalance that is parallel to the relationship patterns found in our parents, until we find balance and overcome it. When we engage in hemispheric synchronicity by simultaneously integrating both thought and emotion from the right hemisphere, creative emotional feminine, and the left hemisphere, analytical thinking masculine, quadrants of the brain, we operate with the intellectual capacity of the whole brain to perform at its best, much like Albert Einstein was able to do, resulting in a state of unity consciousness, which is coherence of heart-mind intelligence. When operating from a dominant quadrant, such as the masculine or feminine right or left brain hemispheric preference, it leads to polarization. This is where many problems lie, and where the law of opposition of electromagnetism applies, resulting from the duality of the two hemispheres. By marrying both our feminine and masculine, yin and yang qualities, we achieve a state of wholeness and full brain integration. When obtaining this balance, you will no longer need to learn the painful lessons of opposing attractions, no matter what the subject. This is key to becoming one and at peace with ourselves. Passing down generational shadows is the cause of many of our shortcomings and life problems. As we begin confronting these dragons and demons by first addressing the inherent patterns of our parents, we can prevent common relationship disasters, such as breakups, divorce, and other unnecessary failures or growing pains in our lives that we could have learned from otherwise. Nonetheless, these experiences are valuable to our growth. If everyone completed generational healing work solely on their parents, we would have far less healing work to do. Regretfully, however, few people complete their healing work, let alone heal from generational baggage, that it may require some of us to apply this framework to our grandparents or more generations back. The desire to learn about the history of our ascendants lends value and credence into the many hardships and sorrows they may have endured, as well as adding insight into some of our own inherent propensities and transferred dispositions. Consequently, we recommend exploring more about your ancestral history to better understand how it had a personal impact on you, your children, and other family members, if you haven't already done so. Step 4. Reframe emotional scars to remove their power over you. Understand that your unmet emotional need began from a specific parent or significant event that plays a role as your key player or catalyst, shaping you into the person you're meant to be, challenging you to grow and be better. What have you learned and how did you grow from this unmet need? Knowing this is key to discovering your innate gifts and soul purpose. Example: if someone was bullied or was a witness to bullying, it may have inspired the pursuit in a career as a victim's advocate. This is a common example of the law of Dharma, being the solution to your unmet need by learning how to heal from the event, then assisting and empowering those who can relate, freeing those that suffered the same imprisonment as you by, and I quote, being the change you wish to see in the world. End of the famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi. Identifying this as a significant method that will enable you to employ the relationship mirror technique while assisting you in determining your subconscious and inherited beliefs. In the process, you will begin to clear and recode these limited subconscious beliefs and inherent programming. Therefore, awareness is the first step. At this point, you are aware of the core belief from your unmet need, and you may also be aware of your key players and the people that exhibit relationship mirrors in your life. Realize that there are two mirrors at play here, yours and the other person's. For instance, you may have felt unloved by a parent when specific privileges weren't granted or were removed from you. Therefore, you may feel triggered when experiencing similar feelings, such as feeling denied of specific privileges in your interpersonal relationships. This triggers a neural association that is tied to the feeling of being unloved or unworthy of love, as conditioned from your past. This person or event is only a mirror into your subconscious programming that reflects this past emotional unmet need and void. You are exhibiting a perception of your reality based on your beliefs, whether there was an existing inherent vulnerability or it was derived from subjective personal experiences, and the other person is exhibiting a mirror based on his or her perceptual reality as well. You both create and project onto each other what you believe. and it will manifest in you as well as in the other person. There are two worlds merged into one reality. Therefore, mastering this dynamic is quite tricky and is a work of art that takes new awareness, time, and practice. Instead of judging, fault-finding, or feeling resentment toward these key players, we will show you positive reframes to empower you and move into compassion and empathy to transmute emotional scars. To judge others is only to judge ourselves. Therefore, it's ineffective and useless. The open wounds that have been emotionally unprocessed and buried are generally what keep the faulty programming materializing in our external reality, holding us back and preventing us from moving forward. Perceptual reframing is a technique that facilitates a different way of seeing a problem, circumstance, or a relationship that enables us to remove the obstacles in our life from limiting beliefs or default programming, and where we can begin to see solutions. Perceptual reframing can remove the emotional wound and decrease the negative effects of maladaptive responses without removing the memory. With powerful reframes, it is possible to quickly shift and broaden our perspective at a conscious and subconscious level, helping us to self-regulate. Reframing allows for a healthier, more insightful reality that is used to both empower and improve any part of human aptitudes. When we change the questions, we change our trajectory. The practice of reframing the perception of our experience and emotional wounds will create new neural associations and healthier emotional responses. Changing, or better yet, enhancing our perception of a negative situation or perceived void from core beliefs can heal us from the pain we may carry. Changing our outlook is not just about attitude, but is also a matter of perspective, how we view and experience life, and what meaning we derive from it. A positive perspective can elevate our mind, permitting us to deal with any hardship with greater ease. We all get caught up believing that it's our situations and circumstances that need to change, when in reality it is our perceptions that need to be reframed, which will bring us to discover victory over circumstance and mind over matter. We must shift internally to shift externally. To turn one's predicament into a human achievement by transforming a tragedy into a triumph is human potential at its best. Viktor Frankl. If we implement the power to change our perceptions, then we powerfully change our lives for good in every circumstance, gaining from each experience. Doing so will create new patterns in our consciousness. Perceptual reframing and genetic recoding results in adaptive genetic modifications, which then leads to restructuring of the brain, improving neural circuitry and biochemistry. The outcome is a change in our genetic expression that were built on limited beliefs and unhealthy psychological programming. When we ask, what is the meaning of this? What can I learn? And how can I grow from it? We shift our perspective to seeing the glass as half full. And we also increase our capacity of seeing solutions to problems and limiting circumstances that can bring triumph over hardship. Perceptual reframing is a technique we can apply to interrupt self-deprivation. It can send the brain in a new direction and recalibration, reconditioning the brain for resilience and new response flexibility, which is the basis of neuroplasticity. The medical definition of neuroplasticity given by MedicineNet 2018 is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. Perceptual reframing activates new circuits in our brain and powerfully shifts our viewpoint, no longer ruminating on the deep groove of old neural pathways formed by our programming and shaking the brain loose of maladaptive emotional responses that produce poor habits and other undesirable outcomes. A helpful analogy might be to imagine perceptual reframing as the brain under construction and building new roads and highways, neural pathways, as opposed to taking the same old roadways that lead to the same destination or dead ends, producing the same result. This is conflict resolution at its finest, expanding on our own resources by employing emotional intelligence while leading to more effective problem-solving abilities with more desirable outcomes. By clearing out distortions from default encoded programming and reconditioning the mind with the correct strategies, we recode our programming and begin to anchor in our true identity. Then the authentic version of ourself can freely emerge, thus overcoming our default genetic identity and programming. Reframing allows you to structure your belief system to work for you rather than against you, by correcting and elevating your mental conditioning to a positive and healthier mindset, staying solution-focused rather than engaging in a fear-based mindset or focusing on limited circumstances and dispositions. To put it simply, no longer entertaining what doesn't serve you, but rather focus only on what does serve you. Focus where you want your life to be, says Barbara Ledger. This is course correcting. Incorporating this with a positive perspective helps rewire our neural circuitry, rather than reinforcing the lower nature of the brain's negativity bias that stems from fear-based programming and thinking. The goal is to first clear out the residue to make room for an upgraded conscious creation, with a new and improved vision based solely on staying solution-focused to the desired outcome. Step 5. Heal interrelational dynamics. Be the chain breaker and break the cycle of default programming, family conflict, and interpersonal relationships. Be sure that the cycle of transferring these perceived voids that appear as unmet emotional needs to later generations ends with you. Be the miracle by breaking the generational chains. Ensure that you help to meet these needs for yourself while benefiting others in the process, including spouses, children, siblings, and loved ones, to break the cyclical pattern and modeling the solution to others to help fulfill these internal needs. Determine how these perceived voids and core beliefs are demonstrated in your current life, or how it may be occurring in your present relationships. Following is a love model that we can practice in our relationships to break the cycle of unmet and suppressed emotional needs. Implement this model in all your interactions with others and apply it toward yourself and your parents. Practice it as a biofeedback mirror technique in all of your relationships and to combat all forms of conflict. This model demonstrates how we can begin to meet these psychological needs for others and how we can model it to them in their interactions with us in turn. Implementing this model into our daily lives will enable each of us to conquer the emotional reactions and maladaptive responses that provide key insights into blind spots and dissociations. At the core, our behaviors are driven by two primary but polarizing human drives, which is love or fear. Therefore, our actions can be completely determined by our desire to love and be loved, and our fear of not being able to love or be loved. This shows up as a psychological need of being heard, understood, and acknowledged, and to ultimately feel authentically self-expressed. This love model gives us the ability to create that in our relationships and do our part in fulfilling the vital human need, to love and be loved, which will in turn prevent us from perpetuating the cycle of unresolved emotional needs onto future generations. This model can create a climate of warmth in social situations because it incorporates reflective and extensive listening, which is helpful in conflict resolution and settling disputes between people, such as handling resistance or anger in others, as explained by Katz and McNulty, 1994. Now, we'll cover the Love Model acronym. L. Listen. Active soul-level listening implements reflective and extensive listening. Listen intently and patiently without interruptions, judgments, or pretenses. Practice deeply listening and hearing what others are saying and what they're not saying. Develop the art of listening to both conversations, the audible and inaudible one, by reflecting on what the speaker is saying, using perceptiveness and reading between the lines of what's being said. Effective communication involves effective listening skills that minimizes unnecessary misunderstandings and establishes clarity and rapport with others. Even if a person is speaking negatively or critically towards you, do not take it personal, but hear the message they are attempting to deliver and use it as constructive feedback as well as gaining insight as a projection and reflection of the other person's psyche. Listen without attempting to judge or correct. Most often, others only need to express the unresolved trapped emotion. O. Objectivity. Objectivity is the state of being objective, just, unbiased, and not influenced by emotions or personal prejudices. We can listen to obtain information, understand, and learn. Listening is not just an audible task. It also requires reflection, obtaining information, gaining perspective, acknowledging, seeking to perceive and understand, or asking clarifying questions. Objective listening asks us to be a silent witness and encourages us to practice maintaining a state of balance and centeredness as opposed to reacting emotionally. Objective observation, then, is to witness without judgment, or to become more aware of yours and the other person's consciousness. It means to notice or perceive something as being significant, to watch someone or something attentively, or to acknowledge. Observing another objectively also describes the art of reflective listening that consists of a step beyond what is normally thought of as listening, outlined by Katz and McNulty, and I quote, "Hearing and understanding what the other person is communicating through words and body language to the best of your ability, responding to the other person by reflecting the thoughts and feelings you heard in his or her words, tone of voice, body posture, and gestures." End of quote. V. Validate. Everyone's perspective and personal story is valid because perception determines our reality. Just as you have your own story, it lends valid reasons why you think and behave the way you do, which is according to your beliefs, experiences, and perspectives. The principle is as true for you as it is for others, even if you have differing perspectives. We all perceive life through our own distorted lenses due to inherited programming, conditioning from our domestication, and limiting beliefs, and this becomes our perception of reality. If a dispute arises between you and another person, oftentimes we will default to a primary reaction described in the Cartman drama triangle, or one of the maladaptive emotional responses. To illustrate, a person may have misperceived or misunderstood your intention in a given situation. Consequently, the other may come to you upset, blaming and accusing you of something persecutor. Your immediate reaction may be to defend and correct them, victim. Yet, this is exactly how we continue the oftentimes generational behavioral patterns and negative cycles. This lesson will be repeated until we learn it and master it. It is up to you to break the cycle. If you are wanting to feel heard and explain the reasons for your behavior, then this would mean you are meant to be the solution by providing it in your effort to resolve the conflict and settle the dispute. In this case, while listening to the other person speak, even if it's an accusation towards you, don't try to fix, correct, or advise them otherwise. Just remain calm. This will help diffuse any anger in the other and can help to prevent a heated discussion from escalating caused by both parties defaulting to reactive patterns. After the person's emotions have been diffused and feels heard and validated by following the formula in this model, you may have your chance to present your case if it is still necessary. This is true for everyone, since we all have our own lessons to learn and grow from. We're all at different stages in our emotional growth and development. Our perspective is our reality because everything is done according to our beliefs. We are literally living out our perceived reality. Oftentimes, we all just need someone to see our point of view and feel understood before we can gain a higher perspective. Once someone feels heard and validated for their feelings and perspective, then they can move forward more effectively and won't continue to seek validation externally or destructively using maladaptive responses. E. Empathize. So often, we want to defend our point and feel heard and understood that it is rare for us to patiently listen to hear and understand the other person's point of view first. Empathy involves the highest level of emotional intelligence a person can attain. To better develop this, restrain your impulses to first react, and rather attempt to feel what the other person is feeling, to empathize with them, and better understand why she or he feels that way. Katz and McNulty explained that, quote, This allows the speaker to move to deeper levels of expression at his or her own pace and arrive at a solution to his or her own problem." End quote. If the individual has not already solved his or her own problem or dilemma and gained a higher perspective by processing their feelings through these steps, it might be appropriate to gently guide them if necessary. It is not our place to teach, lead, correct, advise, control, dictate, or place authority over others, because that would be defaulting to the persecutor role. Instead, we can model healthy behaviors and use positive reinforcement, which can assist the other in moving through that natural process. When experiencing and expressing empathy toward another, we need to do so without emotionally or energetically taking on the other person's emotions. When we take responsibility for another person's emotions, we empathetically carry that burden because we lack the boundaries of allowing him or her to take responsibility for his or her own emotional experiences. This brings us back to the Cartman drama triangle of attempting to save or rescue the other person because we want to feel needed or valuable. Therefore, it is our selfish attempt to gain the reward of emotional security by saving or rescuing others from their pain, or we play the victim of others projecting their anger or other negative emotional responses onto us and emotionally carry it for them instead of not allowing it to have power or control over you. Empower with the love model. The best we can do for ourselves and others is to mutually empower one another by believing in each other, especially since everything is a manifestation of our beliefs. Realize that we all have our own complete answers within. That is empowerment at its best, and you are merely serving as an instrument to guide each other to our own innate wisdom. For example, you can help others discover their own answers or may be able to hone in on their specific strengths and reinforce your belief in their competency and ability to overcome a personal challenge. Beyond this, we can guide, inspire, empower, or motivate, but the rest is left up to the other person. Everyone has their own wisdom and answers inside, and must follow their internal guidance system on their own time and terms. We do not always have a mirror in front of us to see ourselves. Therefore, it is always easier to see the behaviors and shortcomings of others, and we can use this as a mirror into our personal world. This love model allows us to serve as a mirror to the other person when eliminating our reactive responses. Applying this model in our relationship with others during times of conflict allows us to symbolically serve as a mirror for the other party to reflect their behaviors back to them. This helps them to see their own reactive and codependent behaviors. As we practice this easy-to-remember love model, we dismiss our reactive and maladaptive responses with others, which is a critical step in achieving mastery over the self. We simultaneously heal and meet one another's needs by allowing each other to feel heard, validated, understood, fully self-expressed, and more able to recognize and be accountable for our own behaviors. Both parties will feel far more fulfilled when they are equally heard and may reinforce the practice of extending this principle toward others. This can both resolve difficulty and settle disputes, present and future, as well as engender a warmer heart-to-heart connection with others. Katz and McNulty, 1994. With this acronym, we can do our part to help spread love and model empathy to a world that is devoid of it, so we may prevent the transference of unmet needs or emotional voids onto future generations moving forward. Step 6. The benefit of these 7 introductory steps of genetic recoding, identifying key players, decoding emotional blocks, and identifying core beliefs, giving our past purpose, reframing emotional scars, healing intergenerational dynamics, and applying the love model is that in doing so, it helps us overcome the ongoing battle of generational hardships, relationship conflict with ourselves and others, and achieve emotional integration and mastery over the self. Making empowering decisions by learning successful recoding strategies to address what can be difficult emotions now will allay future suffering. If not, we will stunt emotional maturity and continue to carry these childhood wounds around into our adult life until we implement healthier behaviors from empowering healing strategies. By choosing adaptive responses through the process of decoding generational programming and emotional blocks to experience the full range of our emotions and implementing the love model into our relationships, we can avoid reliving the pain of TEP and transferring them onto future generations. Empowerment comes via accountability and emotional awareness because it lends insight into our behaviors and the behaviors of others that are influenced by each of our belief systems from both perceived voids and genetically transferred beliefs, while increasing our ability to make more empowering choices and implement more adaptive responses. As we take full accountability, we realize that we are creating the outcomes in our life, since everything is done according to our beliefs. Self-empowerment gives us the awareness and ability to change our external circumstances as we change it internally. In this respect, we are no longer taking on the victim role in our life, but choosing to be empowered by being at the helm, steering the ship of our life circumstances. Therefore, owning our power is just as much about being responsible for our creations as well as our miscreations. The simple love model is a tool that embraces self-empowerment through the realization that unmet needs are actually an interpretation of perceived voids. Therefore, no one has the power to hurt us when we exercise the empowering tool of the love model. Practicing the love model equips us with the ability to express and practice empathy, further enabling us to meet the emotional needs of others while simultaneously satisfying our own emotional needs. In turn, we begin to break free from maladaptive emotional responses and genetically transferred dispositions. In this respect, we break the chain cycle of unmet needs from limited inherent beliefs and perspectives that lead to sabotage and self-defeating behaviors to that of an expanded viewpoint, widening our lens and broadening our awareness. As a result, we come from a place of giving and compassion rather than need. Self-defeating behaviors are common to everyone, and with the help of these effective strategies, we have the ability to overcome our default survival tendencies, enabling us to thrive. Shortcutting the process with genetic recoding, using our panacea model, can rapidly enable us to master our problems and achieve awakening, healing, and liberation that is long-lasting. One of the greatest benefits of doing our inner soul work through generational healing is that by doing so, we liberate our own children and free future generations by breaking the chains from these perpetual burdens. Step 7. Unlock your potential and align to your authentic purpose. When you are inspired by a great cause and follow your passion that is imbued in the greater good of your community, or on a larger scale, you will fulfill your potential and a profound sense of purpose by default. We're all called or summoned to a specific purpose and an instrument for this purpose to be manifested through us. We all have a calling to fulfill our destiny and need to shift our current reality to align to this destiny. Your job is to be the best instrument or channel you are capable of being and perhaps break through generational class ceilings or expanding on the family's legacy. In a sense, we are all called to become the best version of our parents, to fulfill our greatest human potential. In our genetic recoding courses for participants and advanced diploma courses for practitioners, we cover the in-depth genetic recoding strategies to guide you how to unlock your full potential and align to your authentic purpose. We share comprehensive modules and a variety of holistic psychology therapies that are included in the therapeutic workbook for participants and the therapeutic workbook for practitioners, which comes stocked with templates and therapeutic processes, all of which comprises a panacea model that we can apply to all areas of our life to liberate us from core issues and help us reach our greatest human potential. Now, let's reevaluate the severity of your problem or complaint again to examine the level of progress you have made after completing this introductory level course. Rate the severity of the emotion, problem, or complaint, if any, such as the level of discomfort or anxiety you feel associated with your core beliefs, from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest level of intensity and 1 being the lowest. For those of you who are advancing onto one of the accredited self-healing participant courses or advanced practitioner diploma courses, we will be digging deeper and expanding broader to assist you in not only addressing perceived and unfulfilled needs, but also implementing the complete strategies of genetic recoding using the full panacea model to assist you in all other areas of your life by combating negative programming to help you thrive. If your level of discomfort is a 2 or higher, you will want to continue with the same presenting problem until it is between a 0 and 2 before moving on to a new issue. You will be able to apply genetic recoding strategies to help you achieve a level of 2 or less on each of the core issues you choose to address with any of the programs and courses. Ask yourself, what was the most value you gained from this introductory course? And what areas are you still needing support and guidance? In summary, here's what we've covered so far. 1. Identify your key players. The relationship mirror gives insight into your core beliefs. Who has been a lesson or blessing? Who or what has been instrumental to your growth, shaping you into the person you're meant to be? 2. Decode emotional blocks with unmet needs. Gain awareness around the blind spot as perceived voids, being aware that answers come from within, not outside of us. This leads to number 3, and helps to give your past purpose. Core emotions are transferred genetically, which keeps us intertwined with past relatives and perpetuates unhealthy programming and living a similar story, compelling us to clear our ancestral links to fulfill a greater purpose. We must embrace our innate masculine and feminine natures and make peace with our past to achieve balance and whole brain integration and designing a new story. 4. Reframe emotional scars to no longer hold any power over you with the technique of perceptual reframing, asking different questions, thereby improving the narrative, recoding belief systems to work for you rather than against you. Rewire your neural circuitry by redirecting your focus on elevated desires, thoughts, and emotions, like gratitude, to recondition your mind and recode your epigenetics. Focus on the solution, not the problem or fear. This will activate new, healthy gene expression and a better version of you. 5. Heal interrelational dynamics. Practice empathy through the love model by first listening, observing, validating, empathizing, and empowering, rather than correcting, judging, or reacting. This monumental step helps enhance our binocular perspective and gain both compassion and understanding to heal relationships and unresolved emotion within us and toward others, activating the highest function of the brain. 6. Emotional integration and mastery. With higher self-awareness, emotion regulation, adaptive emotional responses, making peace with our past, and healing strategies, we achieve overall emotional wholeness and self-mastery. 7. Unlock your potential and align to your authentic purpose. When you are inspired by a great cause and imbued in a greater good to your community or on a larger scale, you will fulfill your potential and a profound sense of purpose by default. Holistic Psychology e-courses. If you gained something from these internal shifts today, then you would love our participant healing courses and accredited practitioner diploma courses. Awareness is only the first step, and in our holistic psychology courses, we provide you with genetic recoding strategies to completely overcome negative subconscious programming to help you thrive using a 7-step panacea model that guides you step by step to your own intuitive answers to advance you on your path toward fulfilling your purpose, overcoming generational patterns, unlocking your potential, and attaining self-mastery. Genetic recoding is a standalone holistic therapy that incorporates various approaches to holistic psychology, but can also be used as an adjunct therapy to provide structure and a foundation to other healing modalities and therapy programs such as hypnotherapy, counseling, psychotherapy, addiction counseling, marriage and family therapy, EMDR and other rapid eye movement therapies, life coaching, energy healing, and others. Participant courses. Our participant courses in genetic recoding are beneficial for individuals, families, and couples. For those that are serious about completing your soul work, advancing your healing, or diving deeper to fulfill your purpose and potential, the participant courses in genetic recoding are designed for you. The inner work involved will enable you to upgrade your mental and emotional psychology, recode self-sabotage and limiting beliefs to instill positive beliefs, habits, and behaviors that you wish to model within family dynamics, nourishing and healing the entire generational system. Practitioner courses. Or if you're looking to either advance or begin your career as a therapist, educator, coach, healer, mentor, or holistic practitioner, and want to take your success to the next level while making a greater impact, we have comprehensive strategies outlined in these online courses with our internationally accredited and certifiable practitioner courses. Holistic Psychology for Practitioners that comes with a done-for-you business in a box to help professionals get started right away. If you're already running a practice, but still need to complete your own soul work first, the Panacea model will shortcut your success with core healing steps you're probably not currently using to rapidly advance your results. As you complete the Heal As You Earn Diploma e-course or workshop for practitioners, you will both gain self-mastery and increase eligibility by becoming more qualified as an internationally certified professional and assist others with a meaningful healing practice. With the ability to work online and from anywhere, you can advance your career to become the expert in your field with personal hands-on experience, maximizing your reach, and gain a higher income potential from a worthy cause. All programs are internationally accredited, self-healing courses, tailored specifically for either participants or as a certification course for professionals. Each program includes the opportunity to receive private one-on-one sessions to guide you through the course and Panacea model. We also have monthly VIP membership plans and annual plans available. These courses are like any other investment to your future success. The more you invest in yourself, the more value you will get. Liberated Living's ebooks and e-courses. Other courses and written material by Liberated Living include Self-Love is the Panacea, Teaching Tools for the Science and Practice of Iridology certification courses, The Healthy by Nature Dietary Regimen, Discover Your Relationship Archetype and Break Codependency Patterns with Genetic Recoding, Understanding Addictions, the Science and Psychology Behind Addictive Behaviors, Your Personality Blueprint, Genetic Recoding for Participants and Holistic Psychology for Practitioners, Coursework Genetic Recoding with the complete 7-step Panacea model, the 7-step Panacea Therapy Workbook for Participants or Practitioners, and more with more to come. Thanks for joining us, your friends, the twins with Liberated Living. The end. This has been Genetically Recode Subconscious Beliefs by Corinne Sullivan and Camille Sullivan, 2019. Narrated by Brenda Robinson.